In this video, we're going to see how to rearrange the choices within a checkbox field. As you can see on the web page, the skills checkboxes are in alphabetical order. Suppose we want to change the skills to appear as PHP, Python, JS, and CSS. We can do that in Graphite. Let me show you how. Back in the project, we're going to take a look at the skill enumeration. When you look at the descriptions, you can see that they are in alphabetical order. What I'm going to do next is create a property called DisplayOrder of type integer. That's a new property in the enumeration which shows up in this data grid here. I'm going to start entering my desired display order. After entering, then I'm going to save. I'm going to go back to home and I'm going to open the view. Then in the view, when I control click the checkbox field, it chooses that element in the content palette and shows its properties on the right side. If I look at the choices properly, we have chosen skill and description, but there's no way to choose order by. What I'm going to show next is, by using the OnLoadView behavior, we're going to be able to modify that order. If I go to the behaviors, tab it shows me all the behaviors in that view. One of those behaviors that's automatically created by Graphite is called OnLoadView. If I look at the start shape of the OnLoadView, there's a variable called view. That's of type addCandidate. addCandidate is the class file that holds all the elements in the view that we've built. This view variable is what's sent back to the browser so that the page can be rendered on the browser. When we have access to this variable, we can access every view element that we have placed on the view. In fact, if you pass this variable to another behavior, you can have access to all the elements in the view and that behavior as well. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go back to the view and we're going to add a behavior. I'm going to create a new behavior named setSkillChoices. In this variable, I'm going to create an input-output variable called view of type addCandidate. Now, we can name this variable anything you want. But in Graphite, if you name the variable view, all of the elements inside that view are accessible directly, as I will show you in a few seconds. Once we create the input-output variable, the next step is to load all of the skills into the desired order that we are looking for. I add and double-click the DataLookup shape. I choose to get a list of skills, and I want to name the variable skills. I want to set the sort by to display order. What that does is, it gets me all of the skills in the skill enumeration in this order and put it into a variable called skills. The next thing I'm going to do is initialize the choices within my checkbox field. For that, I use the create shape, and I'm going to choose initialize choice as a list. Notice, how I can directly access the skill field. There's another way to access it by saying view.content.candidateform.fieldset3.skillfield. But we don't need to worry about all that. We can just directly access the skills field, and then it has a choice detail property which has choices. I'm going to initialize that, so I can add my own specific choices to it. The next step is, I'm going to use the repeat shape to repeat these skills that we just loaded. Repeat for each item in skills. I will call that variable skill in context. Click OK. In this repeat shape, we're going to do two things. One, create a choice, and then add it to the choices we initialize here. So again, I'm going to use the create shape to create that choice. I'm going to choose choice, and we can call this a new skill choice. For display text, I'm going to say skill in context dot description. Is checked, I'm going to say no, and for the name, I'm going to place the skill in context variable. Click OK. My next step is to use the list management shape to add the new skill choice to the skills field choice detail.choices that we just initialized above the loop. I'm going to click OK. That is my set skill choices behavior. The next step is to go back to the OnLoadView, and in fact, if I do Control Tab, I see that OnLoadView is already open. I click on it, I click on the end shape, then I click on the arrow and remove it. Here, I'm going to call the set skill choices behavior using the run behavior shape. I double click on it, I now choose add candidate. There's the behavior we just created. Choose that. It is expecting the view of type add candidate, and it's returning a view of type add candidate. I'm going to pass the view variable, and then I'm going to overwrite it with the values that were set in the called behavior. Connect the end shape and save. Let's do a build. Purge all of the previous builds and build. Since we have modified an enumeration, we're going to update the database. We're going to go to the Settings dialog. We're going to go to the Database tab, and instead of regenerating the database, since we did an additive change, which is adding a new property to the skill enumeration, we're simply going to push Update Database. All of our data will be preserved, and a new column will be created with the values that we entered. The database update is complete. Recycle the page and see what happens to the order of the checkboxes. And as you can see, the order has been changed to PHP, Python, JS, and CS.